Okay, let's start. We're going to do a recording. Eventually, we'll have it up on the Chaparral website for people who come late or are unable to make it today. So we are very grateful to have Mark States here today. He's a former host of Berkeley's long-running weekly open mic Poetry Express from 2002 to 2011 and facilitated public speaking for poets workshops at the Berkeley Art Center from 2004 to 2007. Mark is well known in the Bay Area and Los Angeles poetry circles for being a fine writer with dramatic flair in presenting his work. Mark has appeared in such print publications as Electronic Corpse, Oakland's Neighborhoods, Poet Talk, San Gabriel Valley Poetry Quarterly, and online in poeticdiversity.com, poetrymagazine.com, and the November 3rd Club. Mark has a poem in the upcoming anthology from Finishing Line Press called COVID, Isolation, and Hope. Artists Respond to the Pandemic. He currently resides in Charlotte, North Carolina, where, curiously, he seems to spend more time judging poetry contests than entering them. So he has 3 publications, Reinvention from Mother's Hen, that was published in 1995, Grip of the Past, Marimbo Communications, published in 2000, and Tongue Control, the Laguna Poet Series, number 215 from The Inevitable Press, which is now out of print. Mark, take it away.
Oh, thank you so much, Rick, for the introduction and the honor of this feature. And thank you, everyone, for being here at the Mark States Birthday Bash number 13. Usually I refrain from talking in between poems. I tend to ramble, stutter, get that deer in the headlights look, and it can be excruciating to watch sometimes. A poem in a book or magazine has to be able to stand on its own without author explanation anyway. That being said, today I will break this general rule several times. I will introduce each section of this feature and perhaps make a comment about a particular poem from time to time. We'll start with my first book, Reinvention, and it's hard to believe it is 27 years old. Although I'd been writing since high school, I started reading in public in late 1993. So without getting into Beatles arguments, Reinvention is my early years work. Called by some, a few, a case study in lyrical allegory, it's really more in the tradition of Langston Hughes in that it is deceptively simple short poems with deeper meanings and sometimes sugar-coated with the rhythms or philosophies of Prince, Parliament Funkadelic, and in this case, John Lennon. All in the mind. Some people say I'm dreaming my life away, but that's okay. I'd rather be asleep when I'm awake anyway. Positivity you'll find in the mind, not on a store shelf of any kind, not hanging like a cobweb off of a Venetian blind. Can't take it in your fingers and play, gotta take it out of your head and put it in your hand instead. It's a spiritual equivalent of a sun ray. Energy paradox. Dad, he says he's dying. Been saying that for 18 years, the best I can remember. And this time it might be so. I don't know. The whole thing is such a drag. All this time, spending his life expecting to die. And all this time, spending my life trying to figure out how to live. The shoe's worn out. You call it idealistic fantasy. I call it now. The world is no better simply because we continue to victimize and blame the other. The shoe has been on the other foot long enough. By now, it should be worn out. Why not throw it away? Why patch up the toes and place a rubber band around it to stop the sole from flapping? Just to kick some more? Come on. You're just lacing up that same old pair of shoes. Drive through voodoo. Want something to happen? A better life, a better lover. Think all you have to do is pray and it will happen miraculously? Oh, yes. I'd like a higher paying job and a chocolate milkshake too, please. Beg and whine long enough, just like being 12 and your parent finally breaks down and gives you the darn thing. I'm sorry. The better things in life don't come packaged and delivered on cardboard trays, free just for the asking. Can't leave it up to the whims of secret sauces or ladies' voices on radio boxes. In order to attain the Big Mac, you have to be willing to flip the burger yourself. Soft sounds and Sundays mix, and I don't know why. Except for this sleepy heart and water dripping from a faucet sky. A melody to wrap around and rest your head. Words to dream and feelings to relish. It seems the songs are welcomes to thank yous inwardly expressed. Soft sounds and Sundays mix. And I don't need to know the reasons why, just that they do. And Monday shall be a sunshine blue. The only reason this poem is not in reinvention is that it was written 15 years after the book. Oh, I got one laugh. Good, yes. Painted irises. Because there was little beauty left in my life these days, I'm sorry to say, I painted pretty flowers on the walls in my apartment, sniffed the paint fumes and imagined they were delightful fragrances, bounced myself off the walls and jumped up and down, pretending to be a flock of bees or a supersized monarch butterfly. I painted a yellow sun up on the ceiling so the garden painted on the walls will grow. I've taken a spray bottle and spritzed the floor here and there, even brought home from Home Depot, from which I often wonder why it's not called Store Depot. But anyway, I brought home this bag of fertilizer, tossed handfuls around like rice at a wedding, nutrient rich because, hey, we all need vitamins to grow. Gazing upon creativity, I saw that it was good, and a smile was planted on my face. An announcement came from the landlord on high that he was approaching to inspect his property. Hallelujah, I shouted. Here's my chance to show him how much I've spruced up the place and turned around my life. Hallelujah, I shouted. The beauty will be dazzling, yes. The landlord smacks me across the forehead with a shovel. What have you done? Look at all this crap and graffiti destroying my property. Are you on drugs? But I used organic, all natural ingredients. That's the story of how I was evicted from the garden apartments on Eden Way, abandoned, forsaken, left to wander these inhospitable streets. I have a conviction for attempting to bring a little beauty to an ugly world. If you paint your home a beautiful garden, don't forget to soak the welcome mat with pesticides. Since reinvention came out in 1995, I have reinvented myself as a poet several times, mutating or transforming in style and themes. Unlike Lynn Lifshin or Julia Vinograd, who developed one style and stuck with it to great success. My second book, Grip of the Past, from the year 2000, falls as much in the bookstore category of recovery as it does poetry. It illustrates one such poetic transformation resulting from two life-changing events summarized by its opening poem, Scars. She asked me about my injury. So I told her of that day at the factory when a piece of machinery cut 3 fingers off my hand. Looking at torn flesh and exposed bone with blood spouting out, the only fitting term is total shock. 3 operations in 6 weeks. Then my father died from cancer. It's a miracle my sanity didn't plummet through the cracks. All the while she comforted, nodded, and said she understood. And boy, did that make me feel good. Then she started to tell me her story. Coming home, she was 14, and finding her mother on the floor, someone had left an axe in her head. She went from sympathetic to sad. I made a mistake when I said I understood. She got mad. Until you've seen what I've seen, you don't know how I feel. Easily enough, she could be in my shoes, although highly possessive of her own. I guess sharing battle scars is nothing like showing pictures of your grandkids. And walking home from play, harassed again by older kids, chased, threatened, pelted, pushing on the front door I was desperate to close. Oh, no. Little Albert, 5, his hand stuck in the door. I did not know he was there. Albert had a broken finger. The kids blamed me. They saw him, not I, but I was the one faulted. Albert's dad came over screaming bloody murder. Mother did nothing to protect 10-year-old son. Mother took gift from grandma, $20 to help cover medical expenses. It was like a prison sentence to me. The kids paraded little Albert and his cast around the neighborhood. Look what Mark did. Outcasted, persecuted. I cried in the afternoon glare alone in my room. I won't come back. I died for the sins of others. They washed their consciences clean, leaving me to bleed from the memory. And what it all boils down to is that no one's really got it figured out just yet. Well, I've got one hand in my pocket and the other one is playing a piano. Alanis Morissette's album kind of brought me through this down phase in my life. And I'm very grateful. This one is called Survivors. Once I find it again, what page was it on? Oh, yeah. We're living in a time when we're searching for imperfect gods and perfect crimes. We're living in a time when we're searching for truth and a den of liars and virtue and role models who can beat the point spread. Just waiting for someone to come out of the blue and say, I care and everything will be all right. And nightmares will cease to rule the heart. Isn't it good to be alive? Create. Don't buy t-shirt proclaiming I survived yesterday and wear it to remind yourself it's not only sun, moon, and taxes that rise. The last one from this book. Santa glows in the dark. Rooftops stitched with threads of light, red, green, yellow, white. That time of year again. Walking down the street, I see some of my more illustrious neighbors have decked trees, shrubs, railings, mailboxes. It would seem any twig that somehow managed to land upright on the front lawn in the radiance of Christmas applause. Search the aisles at Quickie Mart for the latest Elvis, if you so desire. I unabashedly admit having sighted Santa around the corner. He's bolted to the side of a chimney, self-luminous and high-spirited. So many nights, on other times dusky streets, this foot trip is really surreal. Back in the big city where I grew, illumination of cheer like faith is fewer and farther between. To a bedroom community, I ran, locked the door, and dived beneath the sheets, hiding from home, sequestered from the memories of amputation a week before Christmas last year, and burrowing between the surface pain of losing Dad. And it's remarkable, managing to conceal myself in light without feeling any warmth. Wading through electric heaven with night vision on, I live here, yet exist there. where the buzz of bulbs becomes drowning in silence and brightness appears only because dullness decides to empty itself like a bottle of beer till the next $1.50 is raised. In this path I take in an alien frame of mind winds itself past a lemon tree, oblivious to its fallen wounded, along a fence that believes it's still a tree as it flashes intermittently, and then up a slope to where the city falls off into twinkled nothingness. As I look forward, I know that somewhere out there, joy plays London bridges, and encounters are gifts, and numbness becomes sensuality, and Santa glows in the dark within the light. Thank you. The last section of poems is inspired by Blue Highways by William Least Heat Moon. And we'll start by revisiting the same neighborhood from Santa Glows in the Dark from a different perspective. This one is called Ferris Wheels Night Off. Castro Valley is one of those paradoxically suburban towns, tucked in between hills, valleys, a lake, and next door to one of the most densely populated neighborhoods in the Bay Area. Every man who is employed has a pickup truck, and if he didn't work, he still has a car, spending all afternoon tinkering with it, sliding on his back underneath it with socket wrench in one hand and tall aluminum can in the other, praying his beer belly is not cheese grated by the chassis or wheel axle. It's a town where stately grandmothers march their dogs back and forth across the front yard behind protective fences, only to dart inside to call the county sheriffs to report a man is running down the street in his underwear. Of course, a deputy goes out to investigate and questions a doctor or a lawyer out on his morning jog. The locals firmly believe that anyone walking down a street, particularly at night, is a house burglar casing their neighborhood. They certainly do not live here, because everyone who lives here can afford a car. For a while, I roommated in Castro Valley. The 1.2 mile walk from the bus stop, or 1 hour walk from the train station, once said bus stopped running for the evening, was more than enough to get a lay of the land and its people. Eventually, got used to periodic questioning from deputies on patrol. Where are you going? What is the cross street? May I see your ID? If I searched you, would I find anything illegal on you? After a while, the deputies stopped getting out of the car, just rolled down the window to ask, "You missed the last bus again?" One yup from me, they'd laugh, sometimes wave and drive off. I considered myself fortunate. These encounters for some are deadly. Despite these issues, and an occasional face-to-face with a raccoon or a skunk, I enjoyed late night walks around the neighborhood. They cleared my mind, gave my anxiety something to do as I walked off insomnia or writer's block, or pondered the life issues that had me roommating way out here to begin with. The breeze, chirping crickets, footsteps matching heartbeats, tree branches swaying in moonlight, all provided moments of clarity and purpose, of becoming cool with the rhythms of life, taking you around in circles. I'd become stuck, thinking life was a hamster wheel, forever running at the bottom of it, when it's probably more like a Ferris wheel. And all I needed to do was discover how to make the wheel stop while I was sitting on top and let me enjoy the view before wheel resumes its downward turn. One time I decided to venture an extra block or two on the late night walk before turning right. When I got there, the street lights disappeared. Nothing but darkness and crickets, lots of crickets. This is probably not a good idea, I said to myself, but I'm already here and committed, so guided by moonlight, I walked to the other side of the street, away from the houses and their stately grandmothers and their misshapen men crawling under cars, and at this hour, a pit bull, not beer can, at their side. The other side had a couple parked vehicles, otherwise only trees and brush and darkness. No critters, I hoped. Halfway down the block, the trees cleared, and behold, a panoramic view. Cities and freeways and babe beneath a breathtaking display of stars as I'd ever seen. In awe I was. Beautiful view, isn't it? I was startled by the voice behind me. Pretty sure he saw me flinch before turning around. Man stands beside pickup truck, one arm draped over the side as if he were hugging his wife and squeezing her ass. More likely squeezing the butt of a rifle or handle of gun, laying in bed of said pickup truck. Slowly yet firmly I replied, yes, a beautiful view. I am enjoying it. It is peaceful. Best be careful. There is no fence. It's a long way down, and it would be a shame if you were to fall. My suspicion confirmed. A pretend sheriff's deputy. Where is the real thing when you actually need them? No, sir, I have no intention of going down there. The view from here is fine. This is private property, you know, you cannot go down there. I understand. I usually did not walk this far down the hill on my nighttime walks. And it would be a good idea if you don't walk this far down the hill again. Do you understand? Thanks for the advice. I'll be going now. I retraced my steps back to familiar territory, walking sideways like a clam, because if I am to be chased off the mountaintop, I will look my predator in the eye, not scamper away in fear. Being on top of the world was beautiful, but before I knew it, the bottom of society dragged me right back into that hamster wheel. This Ferris wheel theory apparently needs some mechanical work. Down times. Live long enough and you turn into history regardless of what you know. Marion Horner Roby, quoted in Blue Highways by William Least Heat Moon. He was the runt among us, short and wiry, like a Q-tip with two prongs, not one, for feet at the bottom end. Not that I was much bigger, but at 6 foot even, My 145 pounds commanded a tad more authority in the eyes of the other factory workers. By tad, I mean barely. We were the new temps and bottom of the pecking order. Packaging line was down for repair. So in the walled off space between packaging room and manager's office, we huddled on metal folding chairs. The chairs circled an industrial size 55-gallon garbage barrel, hot yellow, filled nearly to the top with product rejects. Undersized bars below the minimum net weight on the label, wrappers that did not seal properly or had burn streaks, bars twisted like pretzel when the newly wrapped bar caught the curve of the conveyor belt the wrong way, got stuck, and a multiple car pileup from the cars behind it ensued. Rejects were tossed in the big yellow barrel for just these downtimes. Runt and I joined the whole crew sitting around the yellow barrel, each with a small storage bin on the floor between our steel-toed boots. Open wrapper, toss product into bin, toss wrapper into regular size gray garbage can. Open wrapper, toss product into bin, toss wrapper into regular size gray garbage can. Open wrapper, toss product into bin, toss wrapper into regular size gray garbage can. When your bin got full, carry bin to mixing area. Add to next batch, which comes down the conveyor belt through former, cutter, cooler, and wrapper. Recycling and reincarnation. The process repeats itself, and sometimes I wondered how many times the grams of a particular bar got wrapped before it passed judgment and escaped the building. Runt was content during these downtimes to lip sync to songs only the inside of his head could hear. The dreamy, droopy-eyed look on his face suggested 1960s psychedelic rock, but he was 18 and had not even been born when the 1960s were present tense. Mostly, Runt ignored our banter about football, basketball, last night's TV shows, dates, the typical guy talk. Until this day. Runt cleared his throat like a motorcycle engine that would not start several times. It was the first time he looked me in the face when speaking. I heard you're from Oakland? Yes, why do you ask? What was it like when the Raiders were in Oakland? Runt was 2 or 3 when the Raiders left for Los Angeles. So I told him about the glory years, the titles, the battles with the Steelers, players getting drunk with fans in local bars after games, the stadium sellout records. The Raiders were idolized like gods. I read the rest of the room and calculated it better to stop there and not mention that after the Raiders skipped town, my dad bought a rack of those Oakland Trader t-shirts from the guy who created them and then sold them out of the back of his work van at double the cost. If you live long enough, you turn into a history lesson for an 18-year-old. It was the first time I felt old. And sometimes I wonder how many times my soul will be wrapped in skin and travel the length of a conveyor belt before it passes judgment and escapes the building. Heavy stuff, dude. From the fireplace, a constant whirr and intermittent tat-tat-tats. resembling the ruckus from a cheap wall heater in an even cheaper motel room. Similarly, no heat emanates, as nothing is burning in the fireplace. It's the rain. Lifting a Venetian blind reveals the downpour, thick, frantic droplets plummeting between trees and bathed in a faint blue light from the complex's light posts. I imagine this is what it was like in the 1960s, standing outside a beaded doorway as secondhand hashish smoke drifts, minus the 2-minute-old creek already forming in our parking lot, of course. Returning blind to its place, I ventured to bedroom to retrieve William Least Heat Moon's Blue Highways before joining a jar of peanut butter and package of reduced sodium saltine crackers on the couch. The whirring and tat-tat-tatting continues. Bookmark removed. I flipped the page and, naturally, the opening sentence is, "The wipers were useless." It's the 5th grade. I lived a block and a half from school. As the final bell sounded, it was sprinkling. With stereotypical yellow hooded rain jacket properly adorned, a metal lunchbox in one hand and the other hand holding onto the strap of a cello case, I exited the school, crossed the yard with its 4 square courts needed a pink touch-up, and then past the galvanized steel monkey bars that were the bane of my un-Batman-like existence. Lugging around that cello nearly my height was enough exercise in the yard. Today, there's no teasing or bullying as I reach the gate on my twice-a-week walk of shame on band days. Rain makes people just want to rush home. I really wanted a violin, but no. Only the cool kids from the better half of the school's territory got them. We poorer got to choose among the rejects. Cellos, double basses, even heavier, trombones or cymbals. Perhaps I should have chosen the cymbals. They'd have provided better cover and better sound when all of Moby Dick's fury and the flood of seawater into the dining room of the Poseidon Adventure crashed down upon me. Rain so hard and thick, I could not see what was in front of me. Wind so strong, every step forward felt like being pushed back. Rain jacket, pants, shoes, and the fabric of the cello case soaking wet. I carried the weight of 100 elephants with 100 more stampeding from above, and it crushed me as nothing short of a heartbreak could. And I cried for someone, anyone, to come save me from this rain, but no one came. Finally, the rain stopped and sunlight returned, and I walked the final half block home, drowning more on the inside than out. Music teacher saw the still water-stained cello case the following week and bellowed, "You need to take better care of this. It's expensive. What's wrong with you?" I guess you could say it was the day my personal music died. One day, a few years later, the neighborhood busybody, always peering through her blinds to catch children in mischief, stops me as I pass her yard. "I remember you," she says. Oh boy, what trouble am I in now? This prehistoric barbecue Becky, unfolds her arms, her face of iguana with a disposition to match, opens its mouth, and I am ready to be devoured. She says, she heard heavy whir of wind and the heavy clanks of rain on her roof. She lifts a Venetian blind and sees me in a yellow rain jacket, carrying that cello as tall as I was in a pouring down rain, the wind blowing so hard I basically walked in place for 15 minutes. She admired how I kept fighting one foot at a time. Through wind and window, she could hear my screams, but there was nothing she could do to help, she said, pointing to her frail and elderly body. She was only able to stand behind the door and watch, and it broke her heart. A moment of compassion from a most unlikely source. My heart was not the only heart broken that day. The wipers were useless. One short sentence, one flood of memories. Another cold March morning in North Carolina, in the 20s with a snapping breeze, as if Thanos rubbed two fingers together and all you could feel was your body crumbling into dust. I traversed the length of our apartment walkway, then turned right, passing an idling car waiting for its driver to warm up enough to leave. The pungent aroma of exhaust, the fracturing of my bones. Next thing I know, I am standing next to my grandfather's gray 1961 Chevy Impala with the long flat tail fins. It's idling in the aluminum pole-framed carport next to Grandpa's trailer outside Walnut Grove city limits. Inside, the lingering smells of Grandma's scrambled eggs and flapjacks is slowly consumed by the pot of coffee on the stove, soon to be emptied into thermoses which Grandpa carries to the idling Impala, cradled in one arm. His other arm holds the cooler packed with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, sodas, and potato chips. Outside, car exhaust congregates and its odor overwhelms. Now, I've already placed all the poles and tackle boxes in the trunk because for 8-year-old me, that was my job. So it's time to go fishing now. My impatience dissipates like breath in the cold air with just one frosted glare from Grandpa, who's closing the trunk. Finally, we're all loaded in the Impala and on the short drive to the docks where rowboat with outboard motor awaits. Yay! At Grandpa's space between dock and boat is a used car tire tied with rope and submerged, its interior filled with sand and the clams he keeps there to go forth and multiply. No stopping at the bait shop and definitely no spending money. While the boat's motor idles, I get to fish out a couple dozen clams from the tire, dropping them clang, clang into an old coffee can for our day's supply of bait. Unexpectedly, my hand feels clammy. It is the frigid eelskin wallet I am pulling from my pants pocket as the bus to uptown Charlotte is here. How I got from apartment parking lot to the bus stop, I have no clue. This poem, though, is for the apartment neighbor and his idling car. Thank you for the ride back to my childhood. All right. That is it, and that is that. Thank you all for being a part of this birthday celebration.
Awesome.
And with 1 minute left or so, minute and a half, I'd like to bring something up. This is birthday bash number 13, and with the prior 12, I always did something special to kind of give back. But it was always in person. I could bring the birthday cake. I could be the one supplying all of the attendees with, Hershey's Kisses or some other modest present. Last time for number 12, I think we did a raffle and the lucky winner got a $70 check from me. And I'd like to do something, even though it's on Zoom. So I had thought about, having like a little raffle kind of thing. If somebody buys one of my books, I could send another one of them as a gift on their behalf to someone else for free, but that might be like over the top. I'm even willing to, donate one of my books to a library or a women's shelter or someplace in the name of the California Federation of Chaparral Poets. I'm kind of open to doing any of that. So.
Well, Mark, why don't you say a little bit about how someone can get a copy of one of your works?
Oh, yeah. Duh. I will post the information up in the chat once I copy it out of Word here. But basically, I am sort of old school and low tech. So I don't have all these fancy cash apps that people have. But I do have a PayPal account, which one of my sisters and Rick helped me resurrect. And so if you wanted either of the two books, you could send me PayPal. Shipping and handling included is $12. If you want both of them, I could do both for $18. And then if you wouldn't mind emailing me at my email address and give me your address, and I could ship it out. I use a USPS media mail, and once I ship it, I can send you the USPS tracking number. And as long as this gets done, not too long before Christmas, it shouldn't take 2 weeks. It took Rick 2 days to get his, I think it was, which was amazing. So I've thrown that info up in the chat. So there you go. I'm all talked out. I need water. I brought me a jar, but was too busy having fun talking to drink from it.
This would be a good time for people to feel free to unmute if you'd like to chime in. And I really love your poems, and I love your reading style, I should say.
Oh, thank you.
Very passionate and very lively, very engaging. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
What are the names of the books, Mark?
Let's see, there is Reinvention. That was the very first book I read from.
So that's the one
that's the cover right there from 1995.
Okay.
That's from Mother's Hen Press. That was Louis Cuneo and Touch of a Poet. And then the second one, which is a bit more somber for the holiday season. But like I said, it's a pretty good book to give to someone who's going through some issues, or maybe has seasonal affective disorder and doesn't like the holidays. That one is A Grip of the Past. And that is from CC Marimbo Communications. That was Randy Finglin's press in Berkeley.
And then what's your email address? What's your email address?
Dream Boogie, DREAMBOOGIE at yahoo.com. I forgot, Jacqueline, that you're on the cell phone and might not have access to the chat.
I don't see it. Okay.
So I put the book titles in the Dream Boogie at yahoo.com. That's in the chat.
Yes. Yeah.
And Louise wants to know if you can if she can send you a check.
She certainly can. I will email you my address, Louise.
Thank you.
Okay. And I will write that down so I don't forget to do it after we're done.
If you do, I'll email you.
Oh, I'm sure you'll remind me. Yes.
I'm not going to let you get away with that. I really want to reread these poems.
Yes.
I am a latecomer to your fan club.
Oh,
I'm looking forward to rereading these wonderful.
yes.
I love the narration. You're just such a marvelous storyteller.
Oh, well, thank you. I inherited that from my father. Who my sister will tell you pretty much was a ne'er-do-well. But he did give all of his children not only a role model of what not to be, but we were bequeathed his twisted sense of humor and the gift of storytelling.
I really love how you use the everyday objects in your poetics, and that is something to really be envied. Marvelous.
Yes. Thank you. I mean, I see these poems about, marvelous trees and flowers and stuff like that all the time. And I'm like, let me Google it and see what the flower looks like, because I have no clue. But, a pair of scissors is a pair of scissors. And easier for me to grasp what they look like.
I've had many experiences in Castro Valley, California, but I was never on foot. I'm glad I stayed in my car.
Yes. Yeah, it was quite an eye-opening experience to live there. Another place would be Piedmont, which is up in the Oakland Hills.
Right.
And if you read their police blotter, half of it is about, some man's running around in his underwear, and it was the same thing. The doctor or the lawyer on his 5 o'clock in the morning jog before his work. And just all kinds of weird craziness like that. So.
Well, happy birthday, Mark, and many more.
Well, thank you very much, Dan.
I too was bequeathed a cello in the 5th grade. In my case, I convinced my best friend to come select an instrument. He didn't want to play an instrument. I said, well, I do, because I wanted to play the trombone. I thought at that time that I'd be able to pick up a trombone and play Getting Sentimental Over You like Tommy Dorsey. I could picture that in my mind with me playing that and my dad just being amazed.
Mm-hmm.
But as it turned out, it was a lip thing. He had the lip for the trombone. I had the lip for the cello, apparently, because that's what I got. But one thing about the cello on those rainy days, better than the violin, they make a good floater, a good boat.
That may be true. And what's real funny is, after that experience of the pouring down rain and then getting chewed out by the teacher for the cello case getting wet, it just really turned me off to participating in music class. And so, yeah, I basically got an F for the rest of the year, and it is sixth grade. No thanks. I quit. But the funnier thing is, by the eighth grade, when I started getting into, listening to music on the radio and stuff, guess who my first favorite band was? Electric Light Orchestra.
Mm.
So I think playing the cello, even though I played it, semi horribly,
Mhm.
wound up leading me to one of the more innovative and creative bands that has ever existed.
Yeah, I think
So,
most of their acoustic instruments were electrified, weren't they? I mean, you had electric cellos and electric violins in their music.
yes, they were the ones who had to develop that, because in their first year performing live, the electric guitars and the bass kind of drowned out the live cello and the two violins.
Mhm.
So they had to learn how to electrify and amplify them. So they're
Sure.
largely responsible for that band.
So Mark, I'm gonna have to run. I just, I
Okay.
have the 4 hours of the Black Book Tour that I just came off of on Zoom. And then I have
Yes.
6 or 7 hours yesterday with the holiday book festival. I think that was out of Mississippi or someplace.
Uh-huh.
On Zoom. So, but I had to come to be here for your reading
Aw.
for your birthday. But I'm about to
you.
pass out.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to you. And it was good
Mhm.
seeing everybody. And I will be signing off. So you take
Okay.
care, everyone.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
Is there anybody that would like to share a poem? I see a raised hand there. And Luis, you were the first one with your hand up. Go for it.
Alrighty. An honor to be here, and I thought I would share something cheerful. So this is an incident in Central Park. What were we expecting? Surely not bluegrass on the rolling green hills of Central Park. The sound of a fiddle floated up from the urban valley, echoing against the rolling hillside, luring spectators to circle, clapping and swaying in unity. A mandolin plucked and strummed songs of passing seasons in the cadence of a reel. Thumbs and fingers vibrated on the upright bass, keeping time, a percussive rhyme. Brassy whine of the vocalist, bringing lyrics from his soul, accompanied by harmonizing bluegrass voices. Then a wild number featuring a fiddler who played faster and faster, a frenzy, a swirl of sound. Applause, applause, applause. Then the instruments laid silent on the improvised stage. The four musicians stepped forward, heads bent, almost touching. The vocalist clapped his hands and stomped his feet, setting the beat. I'm working on a building. I'm working on a building for my Lord, for my Lord. With eyes closed, the four were one, their harmony like the Holy Ghost, It's a Holy Ghost building. It's a Holy Ghost building. For my Lord, for my Lord. 4 different voices in perfect harmony. If I were a preacher, tell you what I'd do. I'd go on preaching, working on a building too. I'm working on a building. I'm working on a building. We were all transported to an old wooden Baptist church somewhere far from Central Park. For my Lord, for my Lord. When the song ended, for a moment, the audience held its collective breath. Then it burst into an approval of roaring applause. As the crowd quieted, the mandolin began, followed by the bass fiddle. Finally, the vocalist took up his guitar, and the lyrical strains of a waltz floated above the meadow. My husband took me in his arms, and we glided across the grass. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Dancing up memories of bluegrass in Central Park.
I have to say amen to that. Excellent. Thank you, Louise. Well read. See, Dan, you were also wanting to share a poem.
Yes, thank you. Louise, that was quite a performance. Thank you for that.
Thank
Having
you.
been raised in a Baptist church, I kind of got into the music you were singing there. It being close coming up to Christmas, I selected this poem. It's called, How About Those Aluminum Christmas Trees? About 6 feet tall on a rotating stand, a revolving color wheel just below, changing its aluminum brass hue every 5 seconds from yellow to blue, from red to green, and then over again. Changes occurring in the early 60s, all the rage at Sears and Monkey Ward. Trees without the incense of fir or pine. Trees to put corner tree lots out of work. Forget about that box of traditional balls. As you walked or drove down the street, one front room picture window after next framed psychedelic holiday machines aglow in slow rotations, spinning the same candy colors of the now newest fruit candy canes. Why don't we get one too? Asked hypoallergenic mom. We can save a tree from being cut. It just wouldn't be the same. And it's already cut, the children replied. Why wouldn't it be the same? Because it wouldn't have the same smell. Well, I can spray the thing with Pine Sol. Oh, Mom. Dad wouldn't have to trim it or stand it up. Dad doesn't mind. This from Dad. But kids, after Christmas, when all the bright colors and carols are gone, whole forests are lying in gutters, waiting to be scrunched by a big smelly truck. Now really, truly, isn't that sad? Thank you. Thanks.
It's great, Dan. Thank you. Hi, Allegro. Would you like to share a poem? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Sometimes it's hard to find the right button. Anyway, I saw this headline. I had to investigate this. Black unicorns are real. My small unicorn I bought on sale is not real, but I love it all the same. Queen Elizabeth the First bought a unicorn horn for the price of a small castle. She did not know that this horn came from a young black narwhal whale. They are good at hiding in the ice at the top of our planet, so good that for many years they were only a myth. Viking hunters kept this secret so they could sell their horns for great sums of money. My small unicorn has only one horn. Black narwhal whales sometimes have two. The tusk coming from their heads is a sensitive organ. It transmits pleasure with its 10 million nerve endings. Scientists who thought they were doing swordplay may be wrong. Pleasure helps them to navigate as it senses changes in temperature and pressure with a nerve going directly to the brain. My unicorn, once white, is now a faded gray. As these black unicorns age, they become closer to the color of ice. A new layer grows on their tusk each year. We watch from space as they seek complex shorelines to avoid orcas. Each summer, 1,200 gather at Eclipse Sound. They seem to be changing their migration patterns to adapt to melting ice. My unicorn and I call to all unicorns, be they black or faded gray. Help us to learn new paths on our journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Allegra. Anybody else have a poem to share today?
Yes, I have one.
Thank you, Garrett.
Once they have a change of pace, but it's about actions of certain so-called progressives after people have passed. Beware the grave dancers. Be on the lookout for those who, like vultures galore, as soon as someone passes, they start on to congregate. Beware the grave dancers. They stampede in, all to take part in a bogus art of boogieing and strutting all over the fresh carcasses to such a degree that the vultures turn envious until they start to realize that the feast they're left with will be all the more tender. In their frenzied whoops and hollers, they substitute bad mouth and vile for claimed insight and truth. Yet even at what they spit out, disguised as booger and snot, did indeed contain some truth. Could it not at least wait for a toilet or trash can? Never mind the possibility they do not, that in their range of collateral might well be some kin or loved ones already in grief, ill prepared for a gratuitous frog. Beware the grave dancers who twist and twirl without considering that there might be a much more appropriate time and place. And beware grave dancers and applauders alike of any mirror you come across, for you might find in the very reflection none other than yourself.
Thank you, Garrett. Ken.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm so pleased that Mark was able to feature for us here today. He and Louise both show us how things can be done if you really practice and plan it out. I don't think I could do as well even if I practiced a lot. Anyway, thank you very much. It's and Mark, I have recommended to some people that we might ask you to do a program on slam poetry. It's something that most of the poets, in our ordinary groups know little or nothing about. And I think that the things that go into that, from what I understand from your posting and our correspondence, would be very useful and interesting for us to know, to hear. So that's something to keep in mind. I think it'd be good. So here's my little comment today. This is in honor or in celebration of the survivors of the Sandy Hook Elementary School. It's called Conspiracy Creep. For that blustering, blasphemous Alex Jones, bring back the oubliette. Dig or find that hole in the ground, drop him in it. There shall the evil thought languish, dissolving in his rot. Oh, then crush his evil bones.
Amen. Amen to that. Thank you, Ken. Anybody else? Oh, Cindy.
Yes. First of all, I want to say happy birthday, Mark. And I really enjoyed your stories. And I think the simplicity is why so many people can identify with them. I certainly can. So I think you'll enjoy this a mirror poem that I wrote after John's workshop. And I think you'll enjoy it. But okay. The Ellicott Theater. Saturday in the small town of Ellicott City, our dad has dropped us at the movies. For a nickel, I got juicy fruits. My brother Mike got good and plenty. There'll be free candy canes too. We can't wait for Christmas. We're singing Rudolph and Frosty with the other kids. We follow the red bouncing ball on the screen. Weekends, there's a double feature at the Ellicott Theater on the hilltop. We love the cartoons and Western serials. We're enthralled by Miracle on 34th Street. If we saved our allowance, we explore the penny candy store on Main Street down the steep hill. It's a sweet magic maze of candies in colors. In a historic old town once called Ellicott's Mills. It's a sweet magic maze of candies in colors down the steep hill on Main Street. We explore the penny candy store if we saved our allowance. We're enthralled by Miracle on 34th Street. We love the cartoons and Western serials on the hilltop at Ellicott Theater. Weekends, there's a double feature. We follow the red bouncing ball on the screen with the other kids. We're singing Rudolph and Frosty. We can't wait for Christmas. There'll be free candy canes too. My brother Mike buys good and plenty for a nickel. I got juicy fruits. Our dad has dropped us at the movies Saturday in the small town of Ellicott City.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
A nickel, that was a while ago.
Yes, it was. That's a long time ago.
I tell people sometimes I remember when I was a courtesy clerk at Lucky Stores, the gas at the USA gas station was 35 cents a gallon.
Wow. Yeah.
Say that
I
to
was
kids and they
lucky, but
look at me like
same
I'm a
everywhere.
dinosaur.
What was that?
I said, I tell it to kids and they all think I'm a dinosaur.
Oh. I got it.
Anyone else have a poem to share?
Good to read one, Rick.
Okay, great, John. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mark, for giving us a gift of your poetry for your birthday bash. It covered a lot of ground. It was great. And yeah, a lot of time travel, so to speak. And the poem I'd like to read is called Where I Am Is Here. On a foggy morning in the middle of a parking lot where graffiti adorns a brick wall in the background, I witness crows numbering a dozen or more in their pecking order, feeding on discarded food scraps. I imagine the cause and effect, The someone coming or going drops food, has had enough. Meanwhile, there's the Missouri Lounge right on the corner, a stone's throw away. I know this much because I can see the sign. I also know that I'm standing on a sidewalk in California, some distance away from the California Lounge in the Missouri, perhaps. But honestly, at the moment, all I am content to know about is that I'm here, observing an empty parking lot, a truly vacant one now because the crows are suddenly gone, as if they have flown, and they have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm posting my email address, clinician1@gmail.com. If anybody would like to get on our our email list so that we can notify you. We usually meet on the fourth Sundays of the month. We won't be meeting in December on the fourth Sunday, but as I mentioned before at the outset, that we're going to have a joint event with Poetry Power in Saratoga, California. And that will be on December 4th. They suggested people sign on at 12:50, and I'll be sending out an email to this. The performance time will be from 1 o'clock to 1:45. Anybody else have a poem to share? Okay. Well, thank you very much. This was awesome. So again, please drop me a line, clinician1@gmail.com, if you'd like to be on the email list. And also, I'll be sending out, if anybody showed up late or missed it, we'll have that up on our website. Our website, Chaparral Poets. I'll put that on the chat also, chaparralpoets.org. And thank you again, Mark, and thank you all poets. This was a wonderful reading.
Thank you, Rick, and thank you, Mark, too. And everyone who read it was wonderful.
It was.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. It was quite an honor and fun.
Yes, it
Thank
was.
you.
That was
That
cool.
was great. Thank you all.
Happy birthday. See you later.
Happy
Thanks,
birthday,
Mark.
Mark. Thanks
Thanks,
for having us.
Bye, John.
I
Thanks,
love your
poets.
party.
Thank you, poets.
Happy birthday, Mark.
Thank you,
Happy
Garrett.
birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you again.
Bye-bye.
See you next
Bye-bye.
time. Happy holidays.
Happy
Thank you,
holidays.
you too, John.
Season's greetings.
Yes.
Hey, and happy turkey leftovers.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay, signing off all.
Thank you again, Rick, very much.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful,
Thank you.
wonderful, wonderful, wonderful reading. Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care all. Bye-bye.
You too.